All right, are we on? Oh, okay. All right, hello and welcome to Access. To start the program today, I want to read an email I received about 2 months ago. I received it 2 months ago from Joseph Bernal, who is my guest tonight. Dear Richard, hi, my name is Joseph Anthony Bernal. I am currently working on a movie script about my father, Alex Bernal. I am contacting you because I came across a letter written to my father in 1943. It was from a Richard Rosenthal from San Francisco, who was 17 years old at the time. If you are the same person, I would love to speak with you and ask some questions. Sincerely, Joseph Anthony Bernal. And this is Joseph Anthony Bernal, and you located me and answered a letter that I'd written 67 years ago, Joe.
Correct.
Yeah, why did you look me up?
Well,
you tracked me down and found me, right?
I came across some letters that were written to my father about a court case that he was involved in. And your letter struck me because I saw he was 17 years old at the time. And I just wanted to get information why you decided to write to my dad and if it had some kind of impact to you personally, I mean, in your life. And it was just, I wasn't sure I was going to get a response, you know. I just threw it out there, and when you responded back to me, you know, I got very emotional, you know, knowing that this person was still alive, and it was like I was reliving my dad's life. It's like he was back with me again after when I heard back from you.
Well, your father was really a pioneer of the civil rights movement, and he's never fully been recognized. He's never been recognized to any degree at all. Mm-hmm. What did your father do that was notable in the civil rights movement?
In 1943, he purchased a home in Fullerton, California.
Which is near Los Angeles?
Near Los Angeles, correct. And he moved into the house, and within a week or two, his neighbors, who were Caucasian, you know, started tormenting him and his family. They ended up filing a lawsuit against him to have him evicted on the grounds that he was a Mexican, and they didn't want Mexicans in their neighborhood.
And there was a neighborhood covenant?
A neighborhood covenant.
Said there could be no Mexicans?
No Mexicans, correct.
Right.
Correct. And he got a lawyer, he went to court, and he won his case.
And you had, his wife and 2 daughters were also living in the house.
Correct.
And the neighborhoods were really going after him, wrecking the furniture, breaking in the house.
One day they came home, I believe from the groceries, and they found all their furniture scattered in the street. And basically, it's, you know, I mean, I don't know how someone can do that to somebody, but I guess in that time, that's the way it was, you know. And
so they couldn't bulldoze your father and get him out by harassing him, so they sued him to have him evicted on the basis of the neighborhood covenant, which said there could be no people, no Mexicans. Your mother was from, not your mother, but his wife at the time was from Mexico.
She was from Mexico, correct. She was a national of Mexico. Yes.
Right, okay.
And the thing that was funny is my father, he wasn't even born in Mexico. He was born in Corona, California. So he was an American, and they still try to have him evicted. And that, I don't understand.
Well, they said he was of Mexican descent.
Mexican descent.
You're doing a movie script.
Yes, correct.
And I read they said he was of Mexican descent and had to go.
But he was born in California.
Oh, it's nuts. Yeah, it's really nuts.
Yeah.
Well, now, my understanding is that he won the case on the basis that covenants were unconstitutional.
14th Amendment.
14th and the 14th equal. It was an equal rights clause.
It was an equal rights, correct.
The equal rights clause on the 14th Amendment. Correct. But when the case started, the local judge all but announced that he was going to find in favor of the plaintiffs, who wanted him out on the basis of the covenant. What happened that that your father turned out to win this case?
I don't know how they got the other judge from Shasta County.
Shasta County is way up north by Oregon.
And I don't know how he came in. I don't know a lot about that case. I mean, about how they got the judge in, but they got him in. I guess it was my dad's lawyer found him for some, I don't know how, and he was the one that happened to rule in favor of my father.
And he argued that it was unconstitutional, and people had argued that before.
And it never
and
went through.
It never worked. So, so your father, Alexander Bernal, was the first American to win an equal rights housing case on the basis of the Constitution. I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah, correct.
This is a big deal, but he's almost unknown historically.
No,
what happened?
I don't know. The case did receive nationwide attention.
It was in Time.
It featured in Time magazine, and the March of Times did a radio dramatization about the case that was aired across the country. And he received letters from everybody, generals, your letter, and just people, you know, asking him for forgiveness, thanking him, you know. And they don't understand why we're at war. They were at war at the time, fighting, and this was going on here at home. It's like, what were they fighting for?
Right.
For if they were going to be doing this kind of racial prejudice here at home. And I don't know, maybe it was the war that was going on, and that's why people forgot about the case, or there was no recognition. I don't know. I don't know.
Right. Well, your father wasn't a man to toot his own horn, was he? I mean, what kind of work did he do?
He was a produce truck driver. And he was a sheriff for a little while, my mom told me.
A sheriff?
A sheriff, my mom told me,
of
for a little
Orange
while.
County? Or?
I believe so, yeah. He did that for a little while. And then from what I know growing up, he was just always truck driving trucks. That's what he did. He was a truck driver.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of his life, I don't remember him working. He was home. He was sick, you know, and that stuff.
Because you were born quite late in his life.
I was born in 82.
And so he was in his 70s by then.
84, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It was 67, I believe it is.
Right.
When I was born.
Right. And, you know, apparently your father was a very moral man. He was very upright. He always thought people should... tell us about that.
He never held grudges against anybody. Speaking with my my two half-sisters who were involved in the court case, they told me that even after the case, he didn't hold a grudge against the people who filed suit against him. He just wanted to live his life. He just wanted a chance just like everybody else. He was a hardworking, he just wanted a home for his kids and his wife, you know, and he didn't get to achieve that.
What happened?
About a year and a half after he won his court case, his wife Esther passed away of cancer at 29 years old.
Oh, boy.
And it was a hard time on him, so he never actually really got to even live in the house. He held on to it, but he never lived there. You know, he had a day here and there, you know, but he never stayed in the house. It was too much torment for him. Too much.
Must have been.
A lot of depression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a picture of Alexander Bernal, his wife Esther, and your two half-sisters.
Yeah, that's
Teresa and Irene,
that's
right?
Teresa and that's Irene, correct.
Yeah, and they're both living.
Yeah, it's funny because they're older than my mom now, so that's kind of weird when people hear that. They don't believe me, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, why do you think your father won that case? What is it that, you know, why was he successful and the first person to do this?
You know, I don't know. He just didn't give up. You know, he always, like when they threw his furniture out, he put it back in. He still lived in the house. You know, they threw rocks through his window. He didn't care. He didn't give in to them. You know, he wasn't. He used to always say, which is the name of my movie script, where there's a will, there's a way. You know, always fight for what you believe in, and he instilled that upon all his kids. All his kids.
Yeah. And what was your relationship like with him?
Growing up, I remember going to the hardware store with him, buying candy. He'd take me to the beach, you know. But it was hard for me to connect with him, you know, as a father-son, because I think it was just the age difference, you know. I was ashamed of him, you know, growing up, because people would make fun of me, my friends. You know, I was embarrassed when he would drop me off at school because people would laugh at me, you know, oh, look at his grandpa, it's his dad. And I think I held sort of a grudge towards him, and I didn't treat him well, and it hurts now because I never knew about what he went through. I didn't know anything. None of the kids did.
He never talked about this?
Never. My mother knew, and she never told us. It wasn't until after he passed away that we found out about his case and what he did. And when I found out, it just hurt me really bad because of the way I treated him. You know, it was hard on me. It was hard. But
it must have been wonderful to discover what a hero he was, and what a wonderful, modest man he was.
It was.
And heroes don't always make the best parents. You read about Mohandas Gandhi, and who regarded as a saintly figure by everyone almost except his son. And he insisted his son follow in his footsteps and made life very hard for him. And one hears that all the time. So, being the child of someone so upright and moral sometimes isn't always easy. Yeah. You told me that you saw a letter from the Undersecretary of State at the time,
Yes.
Sumner Welles.
Sumner Welles.
Now, Sumner Welles was the Undersecretary of State in the Roosevelt administration, and as I recall, he was in charge of Latin American affairs.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't even one of the students who helped out a lot on the case, who's been getting a lot of information. His name's Luis Fernandez. He doesn't even know how we got the letter because it was among my dad's belongings, and it was from 1939, which was 4 years before this case. And he was writing to the ambassador of Mexico, speaking about Mexicans and American civil rights.
Your father was.
It wasn't my father. The letter.
It was
a letter. Yeah, and I don't know if it was from my dad's lawyer, David Marcus, if it was some of his belongings. But we have a copy of the letter in my dad's things, and we don't know how we got it. I don't know, and Irene, my two sisters, they don't know how it got there.
Tell us about David Marcus.
I don't know a lot about him. My mom told me that after the case was won, my mom and dad would go to his court cases a lot, and they would have lunch with them on a regular basis. And from what I understand from Lewis, the student at Cal State Fullerton, is that he was a Hollywood lawyer. He was a Hollywood attorney. And he doesn't understand why he's fighting civil rights cases, because he went on to fight a case, Mendez versus Westminster, in which ended segregation in the school systems. And he fought other civil rights cases I'm not aware of, but he was a big civil rights lawyer.
Right. And your father carried his card all
everywhere he went. He handed out his business cards. Yeah.
And you have no idea how he found David Marcus.
I don't.
Yeah.
No.
Right. Well, I understand that in 1944 and 1945, there were similar cases of neighborhood covenants involving African American celebrities in Los Angeles, Ethel Waters and so on like that, and they also won. I don't know if David Marcus was a part of it.
I don't know.
But their cases then became the precedents, and your father's case was forgotten.
I know that my dad's case was used as precedent in a Sipes versus McGee court case.
Well, tell us about that.
I don't know a lot about that one. I think it's in a paper that we had, but I'm not sure. I know that one was used as precedent in Shelley versus Kramer, which is a big one that ended segregation, I believe, in the, what year was it?
It was in St. Louis and Detroit?
Yeah, I believe so. Sipes versus McGee.
Yeah,
right.
In St. Louis.
I think it went to the Supreme Court, and at the same time, the Supreme Court was already hearing 2 other court cases regarding racial covenants, and Shelley versus Kramer was one of them, and that was a big one that changed into law.
Yeah. Well, you've told me it's hard to imagine that there was this kind of bigotry against Mexicans in Orange County. What is the situation there now?
Well, everywhere you look, there's Mexicans,
Yeah.
Where I live now, I live on Truslow Avenue, and there's Mexicans everywhere. Every neighbor's Mexican, and everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're proud of who they are,
Yeah, and there's no bigotry at all.
No, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah. Well, when did you decide to go on this mission of getting your father recognition? Tell us how that happened.
See, I found out about the case about, right after he died, I found out about the case. And for about a year,
He died in
1999.
Yeah.
And it was about a month after I found out about the case. And then for about a year and a half, I was kind of kicking myself in the ass, I was really down because of the way I treated him and what he went through, and it was hard on me. And then I went to school for a little while, and I was still being a teenager, being stupid, And about 2 years ago, after I became a father 4 years ago, it changed me. And I decided I was going to write a movie script about my dad's life and what he went through to try to let people know what he went through. He was a great man. Give him some kind of recognition for what he did. And so it was about, I would say about 2 years ago. Went to school, I took a class in screenwriting, and just for the past year and a half, I've been working trying to get information, and I finally finished my script, and that's what I've been doing.
Right. And you also were involved in a shooting for the Los Angeles Latino Museum?
Yeah, there's a museum opening up in November called La Plaza de Cultura y Artes Cultural Center. And they're doing documentaries on, I believe it's Hispanics that have helped the Los Angeles community throughout, I guess, history of Los Angeles. And we were approached, and they asked us if they can do a 4-minute documentary about my dad's case and what he did. And we did that, and we just finished up that about 2 weeks ago, shooting that.
Right. So things are happening.
Yeah, things are happening, yeah.
Things are happening.
And, I have to give a lot of thanks to Lewis, who came across my dad's case in one of his classes. He had to do a study, and he read a book and where they referenced my dad's case. It was like a paragraph, and he started looking for information about my dad, and he couldn't find anything, anywhere. Nowhere on the internet, nothing. And he approached Gustavo Arellano of OC Weekly, and I got to give my thanks to him especially, because if it wasn't for him, a lot of people wouldn't know what's going on. This wouldn't be happening in LA, because I didn't know how to go about letting people know what he went through. I don't know how to do these things. I'm still new at it.
Well, you're doing it.
I'm trying, yeah.
Yeah, there's some possible backstories to this that I find fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in 1943, we were in the war,
Mm-hmm.
and we were concerned about Mexico, because even though Mexico was an ally, the Germans were very active in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and their submarines were active, and I think they're hoping to get a base for their submarines in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to cut off Mexican oil, which was coming to the United States. So, I'm wondering how high in government people were aware of your father's efforts and felt that it was time to stop this silliness about the restrictive covenants for Mexicans. And also, I found that there were a lot of lynchings in your part of Southern California.
Okay.
That actually between 1890 and 1920, which is the height of the lynchings in the South, the lynching of Latinos in the Southwest was at about 70% the rate of the lynchings of African Americans in the South. This hasn't received much publicity. And your father was born into that time, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my dad, I don't know, things happen to Mexicans, and I don't know why we don't hear a lot about what happened to Mexicans, because it didn't just happen to the Africans, it happened to Mexican people too. We were subjected to all the torment that everybody else was, and when my dad won his case, his court case, it was printed on an all African newspaper, the California Eagle, the front page, racial covenants, I don't know about the top. It was right on the front page. I have it at home. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was on the front page. So people did know about it. People knew about it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, here you have this article in Time magazine, which I saw. I actually heard it on the March of Time radio. Yeah, and I was very moved. Here I was about to go into the war, and it was really very inspiring to me. And so I'm going to put this letter up here. I don't know, I'm a little, the tight handwriting of a 17-year-old.
Yes, it was hard for me to read that letter.
I bet it was, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So put that here. I don't think I'll just say read the last paragraph. As an American who doesn't care a hoot about the color of a person's skin or where they come from, I ask your forgiveness. And I signed it Private Dick Rosenthal, United States Army, Enlisted Reserve Corps. And it was, and then I did get a Christmas card from your dad and Esther. And that was it for 67 years. But from time to time, I did think of, wondering what had happened, because I had never read about it.
He wrote, a lot of people that sent him letters, he wrote back to a lot of people, because I read through some of the letters, and a lot of them were letters from the same person. Oh, we received your pictures, we received Christmas cards. He tried to get back to everybody he could. He did.
Yeah.
But like you said, he didn't like to boast about what he did. He didn't want, oh, look what I did. He just wanted to live his normal life. I think that's why none of us children knew about it apart from Irene and Teresa growing up. All of us found out after he
They
had
were
passed.
his children at the time.
At the time, and
So they went through all
they
this
went through it.
violence. Yeah.
you know, and they had a hard life too. I mean, losing their mother at such a young age. They were 4 and 3, I believe, and their mother passed away. And it was just my dad. So he, you know, I heard from them at a time they went to boarding school because he had to go to work. There was no choice. You know, he had to work. He had to support the kids.
Right.
You know, and then my mom came into the picture, and she helped to take care of everybody. And, you know,
Right.
my dad was a good man. He was.
Yeah.
He was
yeah.
a really good man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
then everybody around town knew him, the hardware store, the donut shops, you know, everybody knew who he was.
Yeah. Well, you used to go to the hardware store with him?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I remember
What
going.
was that like?
I remember going and getting the little candy cane suckers, you know, the different colored candy canes and bubble gum. And, you know, when I would get out of high school, I could walk to the hardware store and say, I want to get something in my dad's credit. Oh, yeah, no problem, Joe. We know your dad. No problem, you know. And they would give me the stuff on credit, you know. My dad would get mad at me, but.
Yeah, and he would sometimes drive out into the fields in Orange County.
Yeah, that's how him and my
I mean,
mom.
what do you go in Orange County? Or is it all suburbs?
Oh, it's not like that now. It was back years ago, but now it's not like that. There's no lettuce fields or orange trees, or everything's gone already. You know, but I remember, you know, growing up, my mom and dad would sell fruit on the side of the street, and I remember helping them sell the fruit, watermelons and oranges and things like that. That's how they made a living, you know.
Mm-hmm.
My mom told me, you know, they didn't have furniture, they didn't have all those things, but they had a roof over their head, and they were making money coming in. They didn't spend it on things like that.
Yeah, you know, it seems American, more and more, we're getting so our heroes have to be celebrities. Now, Richard Nixon once said that he felt that John Wayne exemplified American heroism.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I suppose that meant that John Wayne was always the guy, you know, beating off the Indians and the Japanese. But he was exempt from service in World War II. He didn't serve because of health reasons. He didn't have to serve in the Army.
He didn't serve.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, which may not have been his fault. I don't know. There's a lot of stories both ways on that. But here he exemplifies American heroism, and someone like your father, you know, just gets over,
thrown under the bus. Yeah.
Yeah, just gets overlooked. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So you have a family now?
Yes, I do. I have a beautiful wife, Katie, and a 4-year-old daughter, Riley.
Yeah. Well, let's get Katie in here, okay?
Okay.
Katie, will you please come in and stand with Joe and talk into his microphone?
Okay.
Yeah. 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 So Katie, yeah, there's his microphone
There's my
right there.
microphone right here.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you feel being the daughter-in-law of an American hero?
Oh, I'm very proud. I carry my last name like I would a pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have a daughter now?
Yes, Riley Madison. She's 4. She just turned 4 in April.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And where do you work, Katie?
I don't work right now. I'm a house mom.
Uh-huh.
I go to school for medical assisting right now, so hopefully I'll be getting my degree in nursing for pediatrics for the children.
Yeah.
And I just stay home and wait for Joe to come home. We have dinner and we go to sleep, and he goes to work, and then I go to school.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing every day.
Yeah. And what about you, Joe? Where do you work?
Oh, I work for the North Orange County Community College District, and I work in the printing design department for the school. Been doing that for about 4 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you guys can imagine how wonderful this has been for me. I mean, it sort of frames my life. I mean, you know, here I am, 17 years old, writing a letter and sending it off into the mist, and 67 years later, or whatever it is, you know, you come back to me, and it's wonderful you to make this trip and come back here.
A thing I wanted to say is that, you know, I heard from my nephew, his name is Frankie. He had an assignment in school where he had to write about a hero. And he wanted to do it about my father, his grandpa. And his teacher said no, because he wasn't referenced in any books anywhere.
Oh,
And that, when I found that out, it hurt, you know, and my nephew was mad, and he didn't even do the assignment. He got an F on it because he wasn't allowed to do it on his grandpa, who he felt was a hero. and they wouldn't allow him to do it in school, and that hurt.
Well, he's something of a hero for standing up and refusing to do it. Yeah.
He is. You know, my niece, Anessa, she dreams about him every single night. Every night she dreams about him. She calls me 3 o'clock in the morning, Joe, Uncle, I had a dream about Grandpa. Oh, I wrote it down in a journal. I want you to help me write a book one day. I'm going to write everything that I dream about. You know, and that hurts, you know, but I'm proud of all of them, you know. I hope my whole family's proud of what I'm trying to do. I want people to know, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I hardly know you, Joe, and I'm proud of you. So, you know, yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. And there are very few people like your father. He would go out into the fields and take people in and have them stay overnight, and, yeah.
He tried to help a lot of people. He tried.
Yeah. And never asked for anything for it, right?
Never.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he, you know, it's interesting, and it also, I think when you bring something like this up, it does the whole country a service, because people are going to start to look for people who have accomplished a lot for the country, you know, who just haven't been noticed and haven't been picked up. And I think it's very important. And thank you guys so much for coming. I'm honored to have you come.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing
Yeah,
us
I
to
really
come.
am. It's been great. So, Joseph Bernal from Fullerton, California, whose father was a great man, and not enough of us know that. He was the first man to stand up in court and succeed in getting the Constitution applied to neighborhood covenants. And that was an extraordinary accomplishment in 1943. And then just went back and lived his life of a responsible parent and someone who worked very hard. And thank you, Katie, for coming
thank
along
you.
East
Thank
End.
you.
And we hope we have you back here soon.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Definitely.
Right,
Thank you.
Okay.